that we have. Now, for this week, we are going to be looking at how to import our leave days. I just want us to have that skill that we are going to have. Now, to import into PayDay, it is a way which is very simple and makes data capturing very easy. And with that in mind, you'll find that if you have a lot of employees that you are processing on payroll, importing becomes a necessary tool. Now, what you can actually then do is for importing, you can actually import almost everything that you process on payroll. You can import your earnings and deductions, which are the employees' earnings and employees' deductions that you are going to be processing for that month. You can import new employees onto payroll. You can import leave days. You can import new departments, new job titles, new grades. Basically, you can import anything into PayDay. However, for you to be able to import successfully, you need to ensure that you follow the correct steps when you are importing. Now, to follow the correct steps when importing, you need to ensure that you understand that we have two systems that need to talk to each other during importing. On one side, you have Excel, and on the other side, you have PayDay, and you want to extract or you want to import data into either of the systems. So there are certain rules that you need then to understand on each system before you actually import. So before we import our leave days, or before I show you how to do it, I just want you to understand these rules first. And they apply to every import that you are going to be doing, whether it is importing into the master file, or importing into earnings and deductions, or importing into your leave or departments. The rules are exactly the same. Now, let's have a look at the first rule that I would like us to look at. Let's look at the rules for importing in Excel. So when you're now working in Excel, which is where your original data which you want to bring into payroll will be, the Excel spreadsheet to import must, number one, have no commas in it, okay? Number two, it must have no blanks, no blank rows. Number three, it must have no blank columns. Number four, it must not have any totals. And number five, it must be saved as a CSV file in the import folder in PayDay. Now, when you talk of commas, where you say number one, no commas, basically we are saying, you sometimes have, especially when you have figures in Excel, you may have what we call those comma separators for your thousands, 10,000s, 100,000, etc. Those commas must not be there. You must remove those commas. Also, some of you may be using commas maybe for your cents to demarcate dollars and cents. So you are putting a comma there. Again, make sure you don't use a comma, you use a full stop. So when you're importing into PayDay, the spreadsheet you want to import, you first of all need to check if it has any commas. You can use your find button, go and select and search for any commas. If they are there, replace them with full stops. Now, no blank rows. I know with Excel, sometimes you want to demarcate between two groups, maybe two departments, you put a space so that you can now have a blank row to demarcate one department from another or one set of data from another. When you're importing, the payroll will not understand what a blank stands for. So before you import, ensure that you remove any blank rows and also any blank columns. The columns should be sequential. There shouldn't be any blanks in between. You shouldn't have any hidden columns as well. Sometimes we hide columns when you're doing calculations, we put them in behind and so forth. But when you're now importing into PayDay, you need to make sure that you don't have any hidden columns, because when it's now importing, those columns will not be hidden and the payroll will not know what to do with those columns. So do not hide any columns, do not hide any rows. Make sure you don't have any blank row columns or blank rows. And then on your totals, I think we all have that tendency of putting totals using that auto sum. So when you have some information, you want to know the total, and then you go and click on auto sum, you have totals at the bottom. And when you're now importing, ensure that you do not have any totals at the bottom. That is very important, because a total does not have a field in which it can be accommodated in PayDay. So you need to remove any totals that you might have. We don't import totals into the payroll. And then number 5, the file that you're going to be importing must be a CSV file. In other words, when you're saving your workbook, you must save it as a comma delimited file. I'll try and demonstrate that today with you. So these are the rules for Excel when you create the Excel file which you want to import. Let's look at the rules for PayDay. Rule number 1, when you are importing, it is part of input. Therefore, the payroll must be in input mode. We don't import when payroll is in draft or when it is in confirmed. In fact, I think you cannot import whilst the payroll is confirmed. So make sure that your payroll is in input mode. Number 2, the payroll must be set up to import the data. E.g., if you are importing a particular earning or using a particular code, that code must be already set up in PayDay so that PayDay can use that code that you are importing. Okay, so maybe you want to import transport allowance and you've put 060 on the spreadsheet. Make sure you have a code called 060 transport allowance set up in the payroll. If you are importing employees on a particular department, maybe it's an accounts department, make sure that in the payroll you have a department created already called accounts, so that PayDay can use that department when you are importing. So you need to compare and check that the data you are about to bring, PayDay is set up to be able to get that information. Number 3, you must do a backup before importing. This is very important. Why? Because when you're importing, you're bringing in foreign data from Excel and you're bringing it directly into the payroll. So if you are taking foreign data, bringing it into PayDay, you need to be very, very careful, because that foreign data can corrupt your payroll, which is why a lot of people fear doing importing, because it can disrupt your information. So if an import is not done successfully, sometimes it can affect the payroll. So to get rid of those kind of situations, make sure that you do a backup first before you import, so that when you import and it's unsuccessful, you can always restore back to the point before importing. Okay. Right. So now we want to go and look at the format for our leave, how we are supposed to import our leave format. Okay. Just allow me to stop sharing and let me open the leave format that we should actually have. Sorry, let me just do this, I think. Okay. All right, so I'm coming back to my Zoom. And I believe now you can see my screen. So when you're importing into PayDay, when you're importing your leave, this is the format of your leave that you should have when you're importing into PayDay. Now, when you create this file in Excel, ensure that it has this The first column is name is necessary. Hold on. Right. So you should have your employee code, and then you must have the leave type, which is the type of leave that you are using in PayDay. I'm going to explain this one. And then you have your from date and your to date, and then the days that the employees have taken. And then you can also have a comment, and you also have a column that is written processed. You need to also have that one. So you've got employee code 1, leave type 2, from 3, to 4, and then days taken 5, comment 6, and processed 7. So you must have 7 columns when you are importing into PayDay. Now, what you can do, if you are getting forms from heads of departments, getting forms from different sites, different branches, you can ask the data capturing clerks in those areas, instead of simply sending you the forms, they can actually create, you can give them this template, and they can populate this template for you. And when they send this template to you, you can then simply import directly into payroll without having to manually put in each and every form in PayDay. So you can give this template and they can do it. Or if you want, you can create this template and populate it yourself, or a clerk can populate it for you whilst you are taking the information from the forms that your employees would have brought. Now, once you have created these 7 columns, this is where we're then saying on the rules for Excel, you need to check if there are any commas on your Excel spreadsheet. You can actually use the find button there, and you can click on find, and you can put a comma there, and you can say find all. And if it doesn't find any commas, it means your spreadsheet is okay. You can import it and bring it in. So you click on OK. There are no commas in there. We also said there should be no blank columns in between. So your columns should always be sequential, one after the other. There shouldn't be any blank columns in between. All right. And then we also said there should be no blank rows as well. So if you demarcate and you have any blank rows, you should not have any blank rows at all. No blank rows. And then we said there should be no totals at the bottom. Don't make sure you don't have any totals. And then when you are saving, you should save it as a CSV file. So when you come to file, you go to save as, and here you're supposed to save it on your C drive. I'm going to say on my C drive, and I'm going to go to say select this PC. And I'm going to go into payday.net. And there is a special folder in the payday.net folder, which is called the import folder. And the import folder, if you go into the import folder, this is where you should save that file. And when you're saving, we said you should save it as a CSV file. So you come to where it says Excel workbook, and you change that, and you select CSV comma delimited. You're going to find that there are a number of comma delimited that are there. There's one which is written CSV Macintosh, CSV MS-DOS. You shouldn't use those ones. Simply select the one that says CSV comma delimited. That's the one that you should save. And we're going to call this employee leave details. And I'll click on save. And you want to replace it, you say yes. Okay, let me just cancel that. I think I'm having an issue with my system, but that is where you then save that file. Once the file is now saved, you are supposed to close the file. You do not import an open file. Click on save. Okay. And once it is saved, I can now go back into the payroll. And once I go into the payroll, I can now go on to import. So if you check in your system, if you look here, I'm in the input mode. And whilst I'm in the input mode, all I now need to do is to come to utilities. Under utilities, I come down to import from CSV. Once I go to import from CSV, in fact, let me share my screen so that you can see. Let me share that screen. Right, so in payroll, you are supposed to come to utilities. And then under utilities, you go and you select import from CSV. Once you select import from CSV, you can then come to where it says import leave days, the very last option, import leave days. You select that one. And then once you do that, you can now select the employee leave days, which is now in the import file. Remember, that is where we saved our information, and you find it in the import file. And once you do that, you now need to tell payroll or PayDay the sequence of your columns that you created in Excel so that it is able to go through each and every one of them. So the sequence that we have is you've got your employee code, your leave type, your date from, your date to, days taken, comment, and then processed. This is the same as on your Excel spreadsheet. And then once you say that, you can click on OK. I know mine didn't save it properly. I'm having a challenge with my machine. I can click on OK. I know mine is going to say it doesn't want to then bring it through. And you can then, once you bring it through, it's going to display your information here. And you can then go and click on import. And if you click on import, you should then be able to import that information into PayDay. Basically, these are the steps that you're supposed to follow. What is critical is when you create the file in Excel, let me retake those steps again. When you create the file in Excel, so if I go back to my Excel spreadsheet, and let me open it because I had closed it. Oh. This is the spreadsheet that you need to create. Just ensure that you create this spreadsheet and it has these 7 columns. And on your dates, just ensure that it also has the correct date format there. For your date format, the date format which you're supposed to use, if you highlight the column, if you right click, and then you go to format cells, and then on your date, you are supposed to select on your date formats there. Sorry. You select English United States, that one. And once you select that on your date format, you go and you select the very first one which says 12 March 12. If you select that one, you find that this is the format that you'll then get. How did I format my dates? Let me do it once more. You highlight the column. right click, go down to format cells, and then you come down to date. And you should select here on your date type, English, United States. And then when you select that one, you select the one that says 14 March 12. That's the one that you should select, the very first one. Once you select that, that's the proper date format when you're importing. Then you can have the leave days taken. These are now the days that I've taken. I've just put in 5 for everybody, but it could be 10, 15, whatever days an employee has taken. You can also put them there. And then a comment, I just put there to rest, and then the process. Those are the 7 columns that you're supposed to use when you're importing. And then when you're importing in PayDay, if you come back to the payroll, now when you're importing in PayDay, where do we go to import? We go to utilities, and you come down to import from CSV, and then you select the last option, import leave days. This will take you to your C drive payday.net. It will take you into the import folder, which is where you are supposed to save the file, and then you pick up the file which you want to import, and it will take you to the screen. And when you're about to import, you're then supposed to then put in the sequence which you are going to be importing. So you've got your employee code, your leave type, date from, date to, days taken, comment, and then processed. Once you do that, you can then click on OK and click on import, and the system will import for you. Now, here I was demonstrating how to import your leave days. If you haven't been able to import anything else in PayDay, because remember I said to you, we actually have your import. You can import into earnings and deductions. You can import into the master file. You can also import tax accumulatives. You can import pick lists, which are your departments, etc. You can also import your leave days. If you haven't done any of this and this is new to you, we have our intermediate course that is coming up next month, where we are actually going to be taking time teaching you and training you how to do these imports. So you can make a date with us. You can come and join us, and we can then do it together. We will be demonstrating, and you'll be also using your own machine to do it as well, which is, I believe, a necessary skill when you're processing payroll. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I had for you today. Are there any questions regarding how to import? If there are, you can unmute yourself and then we can discuss together.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Marvelous. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Just say one question. The last column, the processed one, what are we writing there?
Okay,
Well,
in the process, you put 0.
All right. And what does it mean?
Okay, sorry, you were saying, you can continue. Sorry, you were saying?
I'm saying, what does the 0 mean there?
Oh, okay. The process, that is for history. It is a technical column that we need there. And what you're simply supposed to put there is 0. You don't put anything else there. Just put 0 for everybody. It is a space holder, which is used by PayDay. So just put 0. You don't need to put anything else, because all your leave is going to be processed through the details that you'd have given on the other columns.
Okay. Okay,
All
I know.
right.
Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome, Marvelous.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning, Nikki.
Morning.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
I didn't understand on the leave type what to put there.
Okay, on the leave type. Right. Thank you very much for bringing that question. Let me bring you back to payroll. Let me share the payroll screen. Now, on your leave type, on the column for leave type, remember we've got employee code, then we have leave type. Remember when you are putting through your leave, if you come to your leave records, I'm sure all of you can see my screen. If you come to your leave records, when you're processing your leave, if you select a particular employee, isn't it you then come to where it says type here?
Yes.
And you select the type of leave that you want to process. That is the very same thing that we are doing there. So I selected C, and here if you look, the column C, that is for annual leave. If it was sick leave, I would select B. If it is compassionate, I would select D. Do you see that there is a letter for each and every leave type? That is the letter that you take and put on the leave type column when you're now importing. Have I answered you there, Mrs. Mudongwe?
Thank you very much. I've been answered.
You've been answered. Thank you. I think I hadn't emphasized or explained that one very well. So if you look at the one that I was importing, if I come back to my import file, you'll see that now on my screen, the leave type there I have is C. So if you look at C, in payroll, PayDay will understand that C is annual leave. So it's actually going to then process this as annual leave. If you put B, that will be explained as sick leave. So you can have one row being annual, the next it can be B, that means it's going to be sick leave. So you can have all your leave types. All you need to specify is the letter which represents that particular leave. And then it will be processed on that particular leave type.
Thank you so much.
Sure, you're most welcome. Just most welcome, ma'am. Are there any other questions?
Hi, Nick.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you? Yes, good morning.
I'm fine. Morning, how are you? I would like
I'm okay,
to
thank you.
ask
How are you?
Okay. I'm doing this import on leave days. So I would like to ask if can I import without the headlines? With the headlines, employee code, leave type, date from and to. When I import using those headlines, it will pop up an error. So I will be posting without the heading. Is that correct or?
Okay.
I don't
That
know.
is fine. That is correct. You are supposed to import without the headings. Why? Because let me explain. If we come back, let me share the payroll screen. All right, so that I can explain that one better. So if you are importing, right? Remember, when you're importing, you go to utilities, and when you go to your import, and here we're saying we want to import our leave days, and I select my leave types that I want there. Okay. When you select these employee code, these are actually the headings that you are putting through. So when you put these columns in the correct sequence, PayDay will know that column A is for my employee numbers. Column B is for the leave type, even without the headings. Therefore, the headings are not necessary at all when you're now working with this. The headings will no longer be necessary. So you find that the headings will not be necessary when importing. So yes, when they've got that option there to say skip header. So you are supposed to go and tick and remove the header so that it doesn't import headers, because headers have nowhere to go. So yes, what you're doing is the proper procedure. There is nothing wrong with doing what you are currently doing. I hope I've answered you there.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Okay, Mucha. Right. If there are no other questions, I want to thank you all for attending and joining. But before I go, let me remind you that next week we have a special course that we're having on Tuesday next week, where we are going to be having an FDS and labor seminar or labor workshop next week on Tuesday. If you haven't booked your place, please book with us so that you can also attend. We are going to be looking at the collective bargaining agreements and how they impact payroll and how you should actually process in line with those CBAs.